last session of the day, Media 2030, Navigating the Future of Content and Technology.
I did. Not bad.
Well, we saved murderer's row of marketing and the media world for the last panel of the day. We obviously are what sit between you and cocktails, so we will try to be exciting and dynamic. We have an absolute who's who here. We have Michael Kassan, we have Tim Armstrong, John Sculley, and Kevin the Man Mayer here, all real experts in their fields. I'm going to kick it off with Kassan, who's sitting here next to me. Kassan, it's a little bit of a contrite question, right? And I'm going to hit everybody on it. What are the most significant trends that you're seeing right now in the media and marketing landscape?
Interesting question, David. If I get granular for a moment, I will talk about it through the lens of media, and I'll talk about it through the lens of the agency holding company universe and the interaction with brands. And again, on the granular nature of this, one of the things that's really trending is principal buying. And principal buying is something I don't want to get into too much detail.
No, but explain what principal buying is to the vast majority of people who don't know what it is.
It's when an agency will take a position in the media and own the media basically in advance. In the old days when I started, when cover...
That was the very old days.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good question to ask today because it's kind of a gray area, so I tried to dress appropriately.
So you dressed perfectly.
For the question. But we used to call it time banking, and time banking was something that was kind of a voodoo thing. It was terrible. And we're back to it now for the first time in many years. And the advantage is, to the agencies, there's a better profit margin, number one. Number two, they have more control. And number three, it's forcing the market to get into areas which are not transparent.
Interesting.
And that's really, but in terms of a trend from that perspective, that is a very, very important thing that is happening in the industry right now.
And Tim, you obviously sit in the middle of the sort of real world and digital ecosystem with what you guys are doing now. We got a good example of that right up there. What trend are you seeing in the media and marketing world as you look at it today?
Yeah, I think thing that's really interesting is with all the technology that's happening, and there's a lot of capacity in AI being built up. I think the brands that are most successful basically have two attributes. One is they focus on the C in CRM. I think the stuff that you guys are doing at Zeta, David, is focused on that. And I think the second thing is, consumers basically live online and offline. And I think the deal that Kevin did with Hello Sunshine is a good example of that. I think that's like one of the most impressive companies that's connected, real interest with real digitization with content. And I think that's something that I think is a really big trend. And I think with John, Apple's a great technology company, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about what happened a few years ago with that in terms of their marketing. But I think the trend right now is everyone is focused what happens on the server side, and I think one of the things that's a really big opportunity is to focus on the C side, which is the consumer. And really, having direct consumer relationships, I think, is got to be the most important thing happening in my mind in the market.
So we got principal buying, we got direct to consumer relationships. John, what are you seeing as the big trends in media and marketing today?
Well, the one that's interesting to me, David, is what's happening with influencers. Influencers started out with teenage girls.
You are so hip, John.
A big
I like that.
And then we got celebrities, and they were making a lot of money at it. Now we're seeing that it's really turning into an industry of professionals who are really good. We had a few of them here today who have built real brands around themselves, and they aren't just brands of individuals, they're really building branded companies. So I think the other thing that's a part of that is the role of video. And we haven't had video as a data type in marketing, and yet we're starting to see that short form videos are becoming very popular. Obviously, TikTok and Reels and Instagram are using more and more short form. I think short form is going to be a big deal. In fact, it's my latest company is we're doing a company called Video Magic, and we're doing short form videos, which are all done with AI, working with OpenAI, and we've taken all of Microsoft's Office applications, including LinkedIn, and we've enabled it to automatically convert in seconds into full motion video. And these technologies that are coming out of AI have all been text-based up till now. Sora is coming at some point from OpenAI. Others type of videos are coming from other people. And I think video as a data type in media is going to become really big.
Great, thank you, John. Kevin, same question.
Well, I think people, the panelists have said a lot of smart things, and I would say one overriding dynamic that I see is hyper-personalization. The use of data, the use of AI. By the way, everyone thinks about AI these days as generative AI. There's also curation or recommendation-driven AI. And
Natural language processing.
Yeah, and I briefly served as the TikTok CEO a few years ago. And I'll say, you can take this video, these short-form videos, which by themselves, if you objectively looked at most of the videos on TikTok just on their own, they're not very good.
Yeah.
It's people making fun stuff and not highly, and the production values are low, as you'd expect. It's all user-generated content. But you put them together in a hyper-personalized stream that knows exactly who they're going to, what the affinities are, the time of day people want to see certain videos. It feasts on weak signal AI. The weakest signals of your usage patterns on the app, it knows when you want to see certain videos. And it's quite sophisticated. So that sort of AI really already exists in huge deployment in a big way at TikTok, and now Reels and Shorts, obviously on YouTube, is doing the same thing. But you can imagine taking that same hyper-personalization with which you deliver content and deliver advertising against that. And you can do that. I think that's where most of the tailwinds are. And over-the-top media, it's like, I ran Hulu and Disney Plus and ESPN Plus for a while. Very highly targeted advertising, taking advantage of that data, but in a very great, high-quality video context. If you can marry high-quality video context, to your point about video, with targetability, that's the holy grail for marketing, I think. You get your brand messages and your performance messages across in the highest quality way you can, and you get it to the right people at the right time. So that, I think, concatenation of AI with high-quality video, doing that together, big deal, already happening. That's where the tailwinds are in media these days. That's why you see linear television flailing the way it is, and it's over. Linear television for sports and for events, boom, you get linear television.
I think the next big leap for linear, we see this at Zeta, is all linear becoming digital, right? Because ultimately, when they move the set-top box to the cloud, that will catch it up to the Hulus and the other ones. But I want to stay with you, Kevin, and I want to come back to you. You run, obviously, Candle Media. You've bought Hello Sunshine, which was sort of book club all the way through to movies and content. You also run Smash, which is a very innovative investment vehicle around startups, media companies, so on and so forth. When you look at it through your lens, having helped to run Disney prior to doing this and having been a consultant prior to doing that, how do you see AI changing content creation and consumption?
Well, on the creation side, we've all seen it. If you spend any time on Instagram or TikTok, half the influencers you see, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not much, are AI these days. It already happens. I can't tell between an AI video even and a real video. You get a little bit of the uncanny valley with the eyes sometimes, but even then, it's become really, really high quality. So, AI in terms of generating images, videos, storytelling, all that stuff, I think it's a huge tool. I think that the strikes we saw last year were legitimate because there is a very legitimate concern on behalf of talent in Hollywood that they'll be overcome by AI. It's already happening. How you prevent that, or if you want to prevent that, I don't even know. By the way, there's these AI-driven.
I'm sure there's some people who do and some people who don't.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's already had a big impact. And again, delivering content, not only just making it in a different way. And then I also own this company called Moonbug, which is, for those of you who had small kids, Cocomelon and Blippi and all those characters I own that were the biggest channel, the second biggest channel now after Mr. Beast on YouTube. And I'll tell you that I'm starting to use AI there to create the stories, and it's for little kids, so it's not hard to do. And animation, simple animation, even 3D animation can be driven by AI in a very high quality way. And then we want to find a way to deliver it at the right time to the right people. So again, it's that combination of creativity driven by AI with personalization driven by AI. You can have a whole AI-driven ecosystem pretty easily. It's happening, and it's going to happen in a big way.
Kassan, I'm going to come back to you on this one, and then I'm going to go back here. How do you feel AI is going to change content creation and consumption?
Well, where Kevin was going, and he's spot on as usual, but you look at companies like Adobe and Canva on one side or the other. Canva, Adobe.
Who?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even know who you're talking about.
Exactly. But you look at the AI tools that they are supplying to the creator community, and that is a gigantic focus for them, because if you look at the Mr. Beasts of the world, or the people like that who are so prolific, and he's in a category, Jimmy's in a category of his own, but clearly it's enabling them to get stories out that much faster, create that much more content, and that's where I think the tool is, that's where I don't think it replaces the talent, it enhances the talent.
Yeah,
That's how I've been looking.
I think a lot of people are currently thinking of AI as a tool, right? And where it goes from there will be anybody's guess. But Tim, I want to jump back to you now. QR codes have been around for a long time, right? You guys have really taken that to the next level as it relates to taking real-world experiences and digitizing them. How do you make that connection? Where does that come from?
Yeah, I'll give you the founding story. I was actually in China reading Walt Disney's biography, and I was actually going to meet with Meituan and Alibaba and some of the big Chinese internet companies. And about 80% of the Chinese economy runs on QR codes, which most people in this country don't understand. But basically, QR codes were like the worst product introduction since New Coke in the U.S. You needed to have.
By the way, John is single-handedly responsible for New Coke, just to put it out there.
But it got introduced as you needed to have an app with lots of friction behind it, and I think in China it's a different experience. And so just like I think from a Coke standpoint, like the original formula worked. I think the original formula in China works really well. And we basically, at Flowcode, took it, and then we kind of applied, honestly, on top of it, a Disney mentality, which is like, why don't you make the experiences amazing on top of it? And that's really what we've been building out. And we use a lot of AI and machine learning in what we do also. And I think if you think about the offline world versus the online world, the offline world is about 80% of the economy, which people forget. And there's a lot of opportunity to put a lot of technology and experiences into the real world, and that's like really what we're spending our time on.
So John, speaking of experiences, one of the stories you don't tell as often as you used to was the Pepsi challenge, right? Which was something that you put Coke next to Pepsi. It's not the question, I'm just starting there. You created an experience and you were there. You then had some guy named Steve Jobs say to you, do you want to sell sugar water the rest of your life, or do you want to join me and change the world? A few years after that, you created the 1984 ad, which was the first ever Super Bowl ad. What most people don't know is this week, that ad is exactly 40 years old. When you made that ad, which became the first Super Bowl ad, could you have envisioned a world as it exists today around that event and the advertising that comes with it?
Well, I have to give everybody kind of the setup of what it was like when we made that decision. Apple's headquarters was still in a house on Banley Drive, two-story house. And Steve Jobs had his own building, one-story, tilt-up concrete walls with a pirate flag flying over it. It was October 19th, 1983. We're sitting there looking at the cover of Business Week that shows the IBM PC Junior, which had not yet been introduced. And Business Week says, the winner is IBM. And we're all sitting there because we're still months away from the launch of the first Macintosh. We were there on October 19th, 1983. On January 24th was when we were going to launch the Mac. So we're sitting around there, Steve Jobs, myself, Jay Chiat from Chiat Day, Lee Clow, and Steve Hayden. And we're saying, so what are we going to do? And Steve Jobs is saying, the Macintosh is going to be the most important thing that the world has ever seen. We've got to do something really big. And then one of us said, well, why don't we find a big wave that's going to happen that we can attach on to? And We said, well, what about 1984, George Orwell? And several people said, oh, no, everybody's going to do George Orwell. But then as we thought about it, we said, but we're introducing in January, if we do it in a really big way, nobody will dare do it. So Steve's final words to Jay Shahid and to Steve Hayden, the copywriter who wrote the 1984 commercial, and Lee Clow, who was the art director on it and also president of the agency, he said, it's got to be something that is just going to blow everybody's mind. They went off and created the 1984 commercial. Then we had to show it to the Apple board. The Apple board were all in their middle 50s. The average age of everybody in the Macintosh group at that time was 22 years old. Yeah. And so when we showed it to the board, they hated it. They told us to sell the time on the Super Bowl. We had 2 minutes. Fortunately, we only sold 1. We probably could have sold 2. And it ran, and it ended up being a pretty spectacular commercial. We got $45 million of free advertising afterwards because it was run for free by station after station around the country.
Well, and obviously, Michael, you were a middle-aged guy at the time. were you selling this ad space, Michael? I mean,
Not back then, but I just had a moment of envy because to be in the room with Steve Hayden, Lee Clow, and Jay Shahid, and then get Ridley Scott to direct it.
Yeah, good.
You know, you left one out there.
By the way, we were supposed to be showing it. It would have been very cool. But the reality is that ad in many ways changed the way we think about marketing. Just to jump back in, Kevin, when you think about sort of the future of where conglomerates are going, right? So we've sort of built up these humongous companies around owning media assets, and you know, a lot of them are having challenges this week, right? And do you think we continue with the very, very large organizations, or do you think we end up sort of spinning stuff out again and focusing on differentiated platforms, or how do you think that ends up looking over the next few years?
Oh, that's a good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Can I end with that? That'd be good. It's kind of multifaceted because there's reasons to believe further that we could consolidate further. The reasons to believe it could split apart a little bit. So I don't know which way the accordion will go. Actually, Economics 101. You know, the entertainment industry, the traditional entertainment industry of movies, TV, channels, theme parks, all that stuff, it's too big. And I think the air's out of the balloon on that one. And you know, I think you'll see that industry consolidate and contract for a secular period that's going to last 5 to 10 years, I think. Look, I mean, what happened to the music industry? They over-earned for decades until 1999, and technology blew them apart. I think, frankly, it was less piracy and more Apple Music, charging $1 per song, that really killed the music industry. They just recovered this year to their 1999 revenue level. It was a 25-year trough in the music industry because the technology caused the great unbundling of music, and now it's rebundled in streaming services, obviously, but for a long time it wasn't by Apple. So I could see something like that happening in the traditional entertainment industry. It's been over-earning for a long time, fed by pay television, being an enormous source of profits. That is gone. I think that will be fully gone in the next 2 to 3 years. There's no reason to have a pay television bundle for entertainment already, and for sports, there won't be in 2 years because everyone's going over the top also. So I think driven by, if you look at top down from that perspective, you should see these conglomerates getting yet bigger because the first thing you do is you try to share cost basis over, you amortize that over more revenues, so you gotta start consolidating. That's like the classic Economics 101. In that industry, you'll see consolidation. On the other hand, consumers are getting very, very picky about what they pay for, what they don't pay for. And one of the reasons the entertainment industry is in a big problem is because you made consumers buy everything in a pay TV bundle. A lot of people don't watch sports. Half or more than half of that cost for sports. Many people don't watch it. So then that kind of calls for a more precise solve for people's demand, and start doing things in a much different, more slimmed down way, and offering packages of content that people really cotton to, and that might call for a more specialized approach even at the organizational level. So my guess is you'll see some more consolidation, but you might see on the fringe some things being spun off and recombined in smaller ways to serve consumers in that more specific
Michael?
way.
Yeah, I would totally agree with Kevin, and you're going to see exactly the same thing back to the advertising industry with the holding companies, and that's exactly.
You think you could see holding companies break up?
Yeah, here's what I think. I think that
That is a bold prediction.
I would say 18 months from today, the advertising industry.
You can't do 12, so we can talk about it next year at Zeta.
Okay,
I mean, 18 sort of
I'll
screws
put on
me
my
up a little
lawyer's
bit
hat and
here,
say
Mike.
12 to 18
Okay,
months.
there we go.
So we're in the zone. 12 to 18 months, the landscape will not be the same at the holding company level. I would predict that for sure. Exactly the same thing that Kevin said relative to the entertainment industry. The 5 or 6 or the 7 that used to be, it'll be 4, maybe.
Yeah.
It's got to happen, both economic and just organizationally. It makes no sense.
Tim, 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think advertising is going to get drastically more expensive. I think that there's a lot of things in the world that AI is going to crunch down, and you're going to pay a lot to get consumers' attention. And number 2, Michael won't say this, but I think Michael's new company, I think, is going to change the way that basically everyone has kind of focused on the top line of advertising, and I think people are going to start really worrying about the structure of their data and the structure of the systems they're putting underneath advertising, and I think that's been.
God, I hope so.
But by the way, well, you're right in that business also, and I think the reality is, like, a year from now, if you come back and your data is not in shape, you are going to be like a wounded animal on the playing field of advertising.
We actually say the entire marketing ecosystem starts with the data foundation layer as it moves forward. John, final words, 10 seconds. You think, what do you think is going to happen in advertising over the next few years?
Well, I think YouTube is going to get bigger as cable cutters continue to cut, and Xfinity could shut down its linear television and make all the money he wants with broadband and mobile wireless.
I just want to add one thing to what
Did I
Tim
not
said.
explain the last words?
Care anymore.
No, go ahead.
I just have to.
It's Michael Kassan.
This is Kassan. You can't
Exactly,
stop him.
but what Tim said is accurate.
About
except-
your new company?
No, what he said, yeah, for sure. But what he said reminds me of one of my favorite Oscar Wilde quotes, which is the definition of a cynic who knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. Not that that applies to Tim, but advertising.
Tim knows value.
Yeah, no. Advertising, I think, won't be expensive. It'll be fairly priced because we are going to finally be able
David,
to answer the question.
One question, Skydance buying Paramount, what does that mean?
That's a whole,
that's-
we don't have enough time for that.
I was going to say, so much for 10 seconds, but no.
But the idea is if you have that advertising targeted in the right way, you're not really paying a premium, you're paying fair value.
Listen, the bottom line on marketing is it comes down to return on investment. And if you can create the right return on investment, the actual cost of the media is not as relevant as what you return from it, which is what I really think you guys are pointing to, right? So I'm now supposed to go into a very long soliloquy on how great the day has been and, close it. But I'm going to keep it very, very short as I'm tired, and we have 900 people coming to dinner, so that will be interesting. What a great day. I want to thank the team that put this together. There are too many names to mention who really put this together, but to think about the fact that last year we had 500 people. We were at the New York Times Center. We outgrew it. This year we're over 1,400 people in person, over 15,000 people logged in online. An absolute who's who of speakers that traveled from all over during very, very busy periods in their life to talk to everybody and really try to express what they think and help everybody who's listening. And the amount of work and energy that goes into this is very, very high. So I just want to thank the team, I want to thank the speakers, and I want to thank all of our global employees, all of our global clients, and all of our global shareholders for supporting us at Zeta. We went through a number of years of really having to grit it out as we were a little bit early to the AI party, and it seems like our customers and our business, it's really catching up. I have never, ever been more proud of running this company than I am today. Have a great day, everybody.